But tell us a little bit about the article you wrote, which, by the way, everybody can check out right now on journalisticrevolution.com if you want to go check it out.
Yeah, so I wrote an article entitled JFK and the Silver Certificate Myth. Now, this is something, I guess, that has been out in the public nexus of the internet for a little while now. Like, people have known that this legend is not true, but just as a brief recap, it's advocates of the theory say that, JFK signs Executive Order 11110, which reinstated supposedly his right to print silver-backed currency at the behest of the Treasury, which, again, proponents say would have, cut off the head of the beast of the Federal Reserve and saved America, and that's why Kennedy was killed. And I wrote the article not so much to kind of correct people, but to say, if we're going to call ourselves a truth community, and we're not going to investigate our sources to make sure that they're true, then we don't deserve that title. So with the Silver Certificate myth, it's very clear that John F. Kennedy was not only against the Silver Certificate program and tried to end it for the majority of his presidency, but that Executive Order 11110 does exactly the opposite of what most conspiratologists state that it did. It ended the Silver Certificate program that had been going on since 1878. It didn't start a new one. Right?
How did that come about?
So the history of the Silver Certificate program is really interesting, and it's mired in a lot of different political kind of activities of the time. Obviously, since America's founding, we've had a bimetallic standard enshrined in the Constitution. So gold and silver were both coinage. They had a fixed 1-to-15 exchange rate, and that's how our money worked. It wasn't a perfect system, but at least it had some semblance of competition, right? So these kind of financial oligarchs coming in the later 1800s, we know their names, the East Coast establishment, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds. They push for an exclusive gold standard because they had all the gold, which pissed off essentially factory workers and primarily farmers. And at the time, these people were Democrats, a lot of Western mining companies as well.
So funny how the tides turn, isn't it?
I know, right? And these kind of political actors changing their faces and over time is very interesting.
Political parties are transforming their political parties, I guess I could say.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was something called the Free Silver Movement in the 1860s, 1870s, and what these people called for was essentially what they called the free and unlimited coinage of silver. They didn't want any government being involved in silver. They wanted to coin.
That's around that gold rush period as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and the silver rush as well. The things like the Comstock lode brought a lot of silver online and made a lot of people very wealthy. So these people essentially said that they wanted to coin their own money and weigh it by the ounce, and an ounce of silver is an ounce of silver. So why can't we just do that? And of course, the state did not appreciate that theory. So they passed with the Coinage Act of 1873 after a long political battle with William Jennings Bryan at the head of the Democratic Party, running for president and being defeated multiple times. Congress essentially passes, at the behest of the Eastern establishment, what's called the Coinage Act of 1873, which demonetized silver. Now, it only took 5 years until these people came back and said, or the Congress came back with the Bland-Allison Act.
Totally fucked.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Always, you know what? And I talk about this often enough. It's always the pretty little packages, man, that everybody's sold on. It's all like, well, there would be no cause that wouldn't be wrapped in a pretty enough package for people to buy into. That's what the global elite have made their bread and butter on, as far as making this palatable to not just the American people, but whatever their next, investment, so to speak, is making these things look palatable and look tasty and everything else in between to the people they're trying to sell it to as a good thing, which nothing could be further from the truth, and it's sold us all down the river at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, I think that that statement applies to JFK and the Silver Certificate myth itself, because after the Bland-Allison Act was passed, it wasn't the free and unlimited coinage of silver, obviously, but it did require the Treasury to purchase between 2 and 4 million in silver bullion to not only circulate as coinage alongside gold, but also as a silver certificate. So this is the birth of the Silver Certificate Program in 1878. That program continues unhindered, for the most part, until 1963, when John F. Kennedy kills it with Executive Order 11110. So, even though it's very appealing and it's very romanticized and it's super exciting, and you might want to tell someone that this is why Kennedy was killed, and it ties into sound money and it ties into the Federal Reserve and all this stuff, and, you know, with that kind of truth hook, you got them on the line, right? But if it's not true, then people need to stop repeating this meme. I've seen it in videos. I've heard it in conversation. It's simply not true, and we can't...
Guilty.
Yeah, me as well. I believed it for years. But the second you read the documents and you delve into the history for yourself, it's not true.
And I'll be honest, and I do want to ask you, because I don't believe it was covered in your article. I'm not sure if it was or not. I'll admit I skimmed through it, and I did it while I was working, but... I skimmed through it, and I was always a big deal on the United States notes. Now, how does that tie in together? Because I've got a Kennedy 5. You know, I've got a red print, old school style United States notes from the Kennedy era. Now, was that part of it all being backed by gold and silver and talking about precious metals once again? You know, because I know that it was separate from the United States notes. And quite frankly, I'm not too keen on the whole silver certificate aspect of the whole deal. You know, I've got one of those as well. However, you know, I was always hankering down on the United States notes and just the spread of different forms of currency.
Yeah, I have one sitting around here, and I'm sorry I can't pull it up. It's buried in the mess of my desk. But if I'm not mistaken, I don't know nearly as much about the history of the United States note, but if I'm not mistaken, it was also printed by the Treasury,
yes.
As opposed to the Federal Reserve. And I'm not sure if it was if it had a fixed exchange rate to any precious metal, because obviously it couldn't have been gold. Gold was demonetized in 1933. So it would seem that was just based on the full faith and credit of the United States government through the Treasury, as opposed to the Federal Reserve. But again, don't quote me on that, because I'm not my understanding of that topic is not nearly as deep as it is in the history of gold and silver certificate program.
Right. I just know that there was multiple outreaches for different forms of currency as well. I was unaware of what I guess we can. Not you know, agree to disagree. However, like, I'm not too keen on what it is that you're talking about as far as the silver certificates go, and you know, I've kind of made my bones as far as that, comparing it to what was going on with the United States notes at the time. And however, I don't know if it's just like a collector's item or if that truly holds any sort of monetary value. However, I know that I paid more than $5 for that United States note when I found it. You know.
Yeah. Well, it might have a certain amount of collector's value, but as for the silver certificate program, I believe the exchange.
Like, I've got Confederate money and stuff like that too. You know.
Oh yeah.
It's like no longer in, you know, my grandfather worked by, you know, I don't talk about this too often. My grandfather worked for CDC, retired from there, you know, did extensive papers, research, and went to all of these third world countries for different venereal diseases. That was his, you know, bread and butter, as it were. I know that kind of
to contract them or heal them.
No, yeah, heal them, you know. But, you know, he might have unwillingly, and we haven't really talked about this in detail because just quite frankly, we have, like, you know, I can't tell a 70-something-year-old man that his life work might have been injecting people with AIDS and cancer viruses. But,
yep.
But I know that what he did, you know, was for the, whether he was an unwilling participant in anything that might have happened to that, I know that he spent the bulk of his life doing good work as far as that's concerned. At least in his has the potential to do good work within that same vein. But you know, he used to bring us back artifacts and money from everywhere. I still got like a little wooden box that's just filled up with probably money that's not even, you know, that has been obsolete for a handful of years now. When we talk about global currencies and things that have been popping.
What? money becomes obsolete. Say it isn't so.
It is, man, and all you're left with is like the bronze or silver value of whatever kind of is left within that coin. You know,
Well,
I'm sure the paper money is complete bullshit at this point.
Well, I mean, I think that there's a reason why not only gold and silver have been taken out of our coinage over the years, but even copper has been taken out. We've got zinc bullshit coins now, and the only quote unquote sound money we have remaining is nickels, because they're still made of nickel. But even the Treasury is pondering taking nickel out of nickels now as well. So that will be interesting.
And I found recently I've got one in my pocket, and I don't know. I go to the gas station. I get my sweet tea. I'm not a coffee guy. You know, I'm a Southerner, I guess. So I do my caffeine intake for the morning is a sweet tea. And so that's what I do. And I go up there, and I usually have correct change. I've always got a pocket full of change. It's usually going jing-a-lang-a-lang. But I got that going for me, and I've had this 1939 penny that I've been tossing around, making sure that I don't use it or whatever, and it still has the 1 cent printed on the.
Oh, the Wheatie.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that that's worth several pennies. Like, you know, that's worth a lot more pennies than what, because of the copper value within it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and this is something that I do all the time. Like, I'm not a coin roll hunter. I'm not one of these guys who goes and buys $500 worth of Kennedy halves from the bank at a time and sorts through them to find the silver. But I've never found silver in the wild in my change, but I have found a lot of copper pennies. And yeah, I do stash those aside.
Sure.
Yeah. But
all right, so we did that. You know, like I said, we're joined with Raz Radio tonight as well, and you're just a gem, and you make me do my job a hell of a lot better, and make me bring up a bunch of shit that I thought I forgot. But what else has been on the radar lately?
Well, Tripp, just really briefly on the JFK silver certificate thing, I want to throw out another piece of more anecdotal evidence that I discovered during this period of time, and I think your ears are gonna perk up at some of these names. The Treasury Secretary at the time, who was the person who would have, carried out this supposed coup d'etat against the Federal Reserve, was a man by the name of C. Douglas Dillon. And when you look into his history, he made his fortune at his father's investment banking firm. Very quickly becomes close friends and political allies with John Foster Dulles in working in Republican politics. He later becomes a close lifelong friend of John D. Rockefeller III. Right?
There you go. There's the name I'm looking for.
And after the assassination of John F. Kennedy, this guy, he was a Harvard graduate. He graduated magna cum laude, so top of his class in American history. He comes out and is, from 1972 to 1975, is the chairman of the Rockefeller Foundation. He's the vice chairman of the Council on Foreign Relations and the chairman of the Brookings Institution.
Wow, great work those people do.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, it's just, this took 5 seconds of research to find out that this guy is not a guy who believed in sound money in any kind of stretch of the imagination. Kennedy didn't even believe in sound money. I mean, he was what was called from the 60s a new economist, which was essentially the foundation of neo-Keynesianism. Like, these were not the guys who were gonna restore faith and honor to the American currency. But for some reason, this meme has been propagated throughout history. And, we talked about this the last time that we were on together, Tripp, when we went through that article by Kevin Cole on Carol Quigley. And we learned that the Koch brothers were the original financiers of the John Birch Society.
Yes.
Which is where a lot of this felonious information about John F. Kennedy comes from. It comes from members of the John Birch Society. So we really have to ask ourselves, is this an honest mistake, which it may be, or is it deliberate misdirection?
Well, yeah, and you're somebody that understands this a hell of a lot better than most of the people I talk to, is that this is, and I got really animated over at my girlfriend's parents' place last night, because they're so open. They're really open to a lot of this stuff. And, I was talking about, especially what we've done as far as our circles and on the internet and stuff like that. Like I've said for a long time, like breaking down the left-right paradigm is absolutely key. You can be completely unlocked with that happening. When that happens, you break down so many different barriers. It's insane. However, there's a second step, and that is, after you break down the left-right paradigm, knowing that this is malicious behavior. It's not a bunch of dumbasses that are fucking the country and the world up. These are very cold, cool, meticulous people that have got a storyline mapped out, that it's done on purpose. And that's really, truly the hardest thing that I have to convince people of, is that it's done on purpose. And that's just an ongoing battle. So I sort of got on a soapbox at my girlfriend's parents' house last night. But
that's great. It's great to meet open-minded people. I have a great example of this. So I flew out to Arizona to visit my mother a couple weeks ago, and I don't fly very often for obvious reasons. But I got what was called the TSA special. Where they flag my luggage for bomb-making material, and they chemically swab it all and swab my junk and do all that fun stuff.
They really did all that?
Oh, yeah. It took 45 minutes.
They swabbed your genitals?
Well, not directly, but they made me pull down my pants and swab my underwear around the area, yeah.
Word?
Yeah.
No shit.
Mm-hmm. It was very uncomfortable. But as I got on the plane, I brought some of those plain carry-on Jack Daniels bottles, so I was just pouring them into some club soda and drowning my sorrows. But I was sitting next to a guy who was watching Larry Kudlow on the back of the there's monitors now, I guess, on the backs of chairs in planes, so you can be satiated.
Yeah. No, when I went up to New York in October, I took a flight like that, and I was like, this is fucking awesome. I was like, all right, because I didn't bring a book with me, of course, but usually I do that and sleep.
Well, see, I had a copy of America's Secret Establishment, Order of the Skull and Bones, which I think may very well have been why I got the TSA special.
Right.
But I sat down next to this guy, and he was watching Larry Kudlow on CNBC, and I made some passing comment about how, you really shouldn't take their investment advice because they're wrong 80% of the time, and Larry Kudlow was a cokehead Wall Street penny stock trader for years, like he's one of the criminals. And this guy was like, yeah, he was an older gentleman, probably in his mid-60s. His kids were well and grown, and we just started talking, and he was talking about how he knew about Gaddafi and the gold, trying to sell oil in gold dinars, and he knew about Saddam Hussein and the petrodollar and the euro pricing situation. We even got on 9/11, and this other lady who was an older lady as well chimed in, and they were both surprised that I knew about this stuff being so young, and I was of course surprised.
Yeah, you always get that. Well, not only that, and I want to talk about this, and then I want to move on because I know that our time is short or whatever. But and of course, as always, I could talk to you all night about a multitude of issues. But it's funny, especially how we look, the young people that we are, all of that stuff. And you start to find when you talk, like I started noticing this long before I got on radio, when I was just talking to people in lines at stores and things like that. Whenever, I would hear a topic or a situation get brought up, is that there's a lot of people out there that sit quietly to themselves with their thoughts, and they're a lot more aligned to a bunch of us that are listening to this show than you would think.
Yeah.
And they just don't have the community that we have, and they don't have the, I guess, proactive stance as we do. And some of them are quite frankly over the hill, and they just, they're going to sit knowing, hopefully make good choices as far as their investments and their families and things like that as they can while they're still around. But I'm starting to see this more and more with older people, and you start to talk to them, and it's like, holy shit, these people are a hell of a lot more informed than you would imagine the average person that's probably not openly speaking out against this stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's part of the divide and conquer methodology, right? Like, even me, in the circles that I kind of visit, it's more blogs, financial blogs, with old guys talking about how dumb the youth are. And then you go to more of an activist post-esque style website where it's younger people, and they're talking about how dumb the older generation are. And really, we've got a lot in common. I mean, our generation didn't screw up the world like the baby boomers did, so they've got that going for them. But, you know, that we do have a lot of common ground, and I do think that we're trying to be split up. And, you know, I catch a lot of flack sometimes for dressing the way I do, you know, trying to look a little bit presentable. But the biggest reason I do it and why I started doing it is because I used to dress like a typical early 20-somethings.
You can say like me, like a dirtbag. I'm damn near 30, and I'm still dirtbagging it out. I'm flip-flops and shorts and a band T-shirt every day, and that's cool with me.
No, it's awesome, and I wish that we lived in a world where we didn't have perceptions about the way people dress. Sure. And, you know, me, who, when I volunteered to work for the Ron Paul campaign, and I'd go into these places and I'd talk to people, I'd talk to old Republicans about anti-war policies and sound money, and they look at you like you're a ragamuffin. But if, you know, you put on a nice jacket and a tie and some nicer pants and brush up your shoes a little bit, then they might not agree with you, but at least they'll hear you out. And, you know, I guess I don't really care how low my bounds have to sink, so long as people listen to the message, man.
Absolutely. And I want to, I don't know if you've been listening to talk radio, but I know everybody has been beating this dead horse. However, we have not talked about it, and I might as well go ahead and do that so I don't have to talk about it anymore. Our buddy at We Are Change Connecticut snagging the mic up at the Super Bowl, because this shatters more illusions than him grabbing the mic and saying what he said for 5 seconds. Because Super Bowl, me and you both know all of the different, I guess just overall New World Order symbolism that goes along with that. It's the entertainment and sport culture. It's the mecca of all of this stuff. And yet we still talk about it's so ironic. I mean, isn't it so ironic that the guy that went and grabbed the mic and basically said 9/11 is an inside job, and the Super Bowl and the hype for the terrorists, the terrorists are going to bomb the Super Bowl every fucking year. I mean, aren't they? Every year we're told that. The terrorists are going to bomb the Super Bowl every fucking year, and it never happens. And you know what we got with all that security and all that bullshit that started 13 years ago? We got a guy exposing the truth because of the lives that we've all had to maybe not live, but endure and put up, all the garbage we've had to put up with as far as the security of this country. And the guy that wanted to get the truth out about 9/11 made it all the way to snag the mic from the MVP at the press conference of the Super Bowl without a ticket, without nothing but a bunk ass press pass that made up some garbage to get to each different tier. You know, it's like a level of Zelda or some shit. You know, it's like we're sorry, or Mario, you know, we're sorry, but our princess is in another castle, and you got to battle King Koopa at the end of the deal. However, you make it to the next world or the next go round. And he did that 3 or 4 times over.
Yeah.
To get right in that position.
To me, that was the only touchdown that mattered that night.
Hold on. The bell. The bell.
Not quick enough with the soundboard. But
yeah. Okay, listen. I wasn't prepped. Right?
But it's Jesus. I am kind of glad you brought this up, though, because all joking aside, for years, and this is something that is not, interestingly enough, is not talked about with the Super Bowl anymore, but you can go look up articles from ABC News in 2001. 2001, these people are, and 2002, the year after, it might have been 2002, right after 9/11.
It was 2002.
During that Super Bowl, they started running facial recognition software, and and all of these different, kind of panopticon-esque technologies at the Super Bowl. And it was reported on for years and years and years. And now that it's important, people aren't talking about it anymore. And this is supposedly the most secure Super Bowl ever, snipers on every corner. We can see everything you're doing. And these people, at the end of the day, just the facade of security melts down. It really does.
Hey, Josh, I want to ask you a question. Did you hear that conspiracy theory about how Margaret and Journalistic Revolution bought Liberty Movement Radio to take it over and leave the hosts alone? Have you you heard that conspiracy? I was just wondering.
I heard that you're buying it out to sign up for ClearChannel, and you're going to sell Midas Gold and Berkey water filters.
No. Like, and it's funny because I listen to enough radio, and especially people that have terrestrial shows and stuff. They're like, no, we're not, we might not be on Clear Channel right now, but they have, affiliates all over the country. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, we would love to be on Clear Channel. It's like, I'm here to say, fuck Clear Channel. Fuck you. You might as well be Goldman Sachs to me. Like, literally, you might as well be a Fox News or MSNBC or a major banking player, because like when you're in radio, you enter my fucking world, and it's like that might as well be, the banking elite of the radio world, and they've screwed over everybody. And let's go into that for a second. The Telecommunications Act, all of that stuff, that has basically screwed us over. And Josh, you got Netflix?
I do not have Netflix. I don't believe in intellectual property, so I try not to pay for it when I don't have to.
Okay, well, I'm telling you, it's good, and it's all I got, and it's it's a hell of a lot better than paying outrageous amounts for cable every month.
Yeah, I don't do that either, but
I know that, but what I'm saying is like, hey, let me have my Netflix. Quit being a dick, But there's this, and I encourage everybody to go see it. As most people know, I've gotten back in the vinyl game and getting back into buying records and stuff. There is a great documentary. Hell, it might be up on YouTube, and you can probably go up at least segments of it, whether you have Netflix or not. And it's called I Need That Record. And you know what? It's about the death of the places that I loved to hang out at when I was real young, independent record shops and getting turned on to new music and all things like that. However, they do a superb job of breaking down the music industry, breaking down government involvement, all of that stuff, and what basically led to the death of the independent record store and what began the rise. I mean, it's basically 2008, only it's the record industry. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's super interesting. I saw that picture that you posted of that limited edition vinyl that you just got, the yellow one. That was real cool. But, before we move on here, you do know who owns ClearChannel Radio, right?
Mm-mm.
Our good buddies at Bain Capital, owned by Bilderberger Mitt Romney.
Oh, shit.
So they are very much a part of the media industrial complex. And I just want to bring this up.
I never knew that, man.
Yeah.
I never knew.
I just want to bring this up and preface it by saying that I think that Alex Jones does put out a lot of very good research from time to time. I think the articles on InfoWars are really good, but, some of it is a little bit ridiculous and a bit fear-mongery. But, when someone like Alex Jones refuses to cover his partner, for all intents and purposes, Lou Kradowski, confronting Rand Paul about his support of Bilderberger Mitt Romney, and Alex Jones does not cover it, there is financial incentive there. Mitt Romney owns his radio network.
Dude, listen, I'm telling you, dude. My friend Jack Blood worked with Alex Jones for years and helped him co-host and all of that stuff.
No love lost there.
Well, look, man. I mean, and I'm not gonna say what was said because I'm a journalist. Damn it, I might not look or act like one, but I try to conceal my sources and all that stuff. But the things that he told me about his time there were just mind-boggling.
Oh yeah, I've had that conversation.
as far as what was going on, and it was just a wild ride. And to see, like, it's like, okay, I've got the Liberty thing under tact, but the ego and the wanting to be Rush Limbaugh on your own terms.
Yeah, I'll just say this though. But
I agree, the content is still good, and the last thing I'll say about Alex and all that stuff is that if anything, it got me a lot more maybe not everything came to fruition, but it got me a lot more worried and a lot more prepped ahead of the time before I made the exodus. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that that's true of a lot of people. Alex Jones kind of inspired them to get into the game, and I don't unfortunately share that perspective, or maybe fortunately, I don't know. But I did get into the game because the people that I respected were influenced by Alex Jones. So, even I can't escape it. But I will say this, I won't say anything more. If you do want to support InfoWars and you have to buy one of their DVDs because it's the only place you can buy it, don't pay the premium for the signed copy. Just don't.
Yeah,
that's all I'll say.
No, and I always hit up all their specials and hit up the clearance racks when I first got kicked off and all that stuff. So, like I've got... I had one on yesterday. I had the fluoride shirt, which the thing is like nowadays I've got so many of these InfoWars shirts. I mean, I've got other pro freedom and liberty shirts as well, but, and I'm a t-shirt guy, bands, causes, all that stuff. I really dig it. But, I'm like, this is still a great shirt. However, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like a little bit inclusive into that whole the group of people that we hang out with, where it's like, well, this is promoting InfoWars, not necessarily the cause that's on the shirt. Yeah. Well, if it's a We the People shirt, or like yesterday, I wore the fluoride shirt. There's poison in the tap water. Find out more at Infowars.com.
Yeah.
But it's a promotional product, which you can't hate it on the guy for that. However, like people like you and I know what that entails.
No, the promotion aspect is fine. Profiting from promotion and apparel, that's totally cool. But I do think that a lot of the InfoWars apparel has jumped the shark in that it used to be informative, and now it's just like Obama with a Joker face and an AK-47 on the back that says "Come and take it, motherfucker." Infowars.com. Like that's just that does nothing to promote the cause.
I have that because it was on clearance.
But I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's just provocative, and at the end of the day, it doesn't get you into a discussion.
It opens up conversation with mainline Republicans.
Yeah, that is true, but I think it's more prone to get you into an argument or a fist fight than it is to get you into a discussion.
Absolutely, yeah. I can't hide behind the microphone. I've still got to go to work in the morning.
Exactly. But Tripp, did you have anything else on the ledger for tonight, or?
No, we got 10 minutes left, man. Whatever you want to do.
Well, with these 10 minutes left, I gotta bring it up, man. Have you guys been following what's been going on in the emerging market economies and now Japan?
No.
Oh, man. So this is, I think, the most profound financial news we've had since the EU situation when Spain, Italy, Greece became insolvent overnight. Now we've got Argentina that's in a hyperinflationary death spiral. Gold has appreciated by 28% essentially overnight. We've got Venezuela in a very similar situation. We've got Turkey and the Turkish lira being revalued because of all of this capital from the tapering that came into these emerging market economies, or from quantitative easing, is now coming back because of the tapering. So our exported inflation is now starting to show itself. And just earlier today, the Nikkei, the Japanese stock market, took its largest one-day hit in something like 15 years. So I hate to be an alarmist, but this is what people like Kyle Bass have been saying for almost 5 years now, that Japan will be the first industrial domino to fall in this horrible currency war. And I think that we're starting to see that come to fruition.
It's all too coincidental, isn't it?
It is. It's very interesting.
And that was the other thing. I when I was on my soapbox last night at my girlfriend's parents' house, and I was a little well lit, but I was like, I said, that's the other thing. I said, listen, I don't believe in coincidences anymore. I don't believe in coincidences, and that's still the hardest thing to get going, is that people are refusing to admit that this is done by malicious people.
Wait, Tripp, you don't think it's a coincidence that 4 former Fed officials and bankers have committed suicide in the past week?
Not at all, dude. They probably had it coming, but.
But this is what I'm talking about with all these financial moving parts going on behind the scenes. We've got bankers turning up dead. We've got Interpol investigating the gold and silver manipulation markets. We've got what's it called? Deutsche Bank backing out of the LBMA price fixing. We've got the German regulator BaFin coming out and saying that the gold and silver price fixing is worse than LIBOR. LIBOR.
Yeah. And I talked about this a little bit last hour, and you're just like me in this sense, where it's like when you start to understand all the different multifaceted issues that have to go in and how they interconnect and all of these other things, that you really start to draw your discernment and everything like that just grows so keen. And you really start to understand the full wide spectrum. If you can understand that this is connected to that, and you can see it all right in front of you instead of being so concentrated on one issue, it's so important to do that. And I personally, for me, I don't know about everybody else, and I know everybody's got their own little causes that they do and everything else like that, and that's admirable. As long as you're involved, I'm happy with you, in any facet. But there's something about knowing how all of these things interconnect that is so important to really dive into.
Yeah.
And to really research.
We have, I think, what I would term as I like the coincidence model of history, but we have an event model of history, where history kind of moves from event to event, and they're like panels in a comic book, right? And I think comic book is an apt description because it's fiction. Whereas really, history is this large, beautiful mural where everything it plays a small part. Some aspects play much bigger parts. You can see some of the motivations, like if you look at 14th, 15th, 16th century art and compare it to the pop art that we have today, I think that art is more equivalent to what history is really like, and the pop art that we have today is kind of the dumbed down version that's fed to the American public throughout, whether it's through schooling or media. So yeah, we do have to reclaim, and I talked about this a little bit with Jake Counts last night. We were talking about the definition of liberty, and I brought up the fact that in Latin, liber, the root word, means 2 things. It means freedom, and it also means book. Right? And I don't think that these people picked this term just kind of out of the blue. They knew that freedom meant knowledge. And that's why they use those terms interchangeably. And it's time for humanity, if it ever wants to regain its dignity and regain its freedom and autonomy, then we have to become educated.
100%. I guess that's, a more and better constructed deal than what I laid out there. But, you have to be, it almost seems like you're missing out, I guess, is what I'm really trying to say here. You're really missing out if you don't delve into all of these different issues and topics and why is this happening? Like I'm not just concerned, and I never have been throughout my entire life, and it's kind of made me a fucking weirdo, is that I'm not happy with the explanation your mom's going to give you on the whole deal. You know what I mean? Like, why does this happen this way? Well, because we're Republicans, or whatever story anybody else got as a kid, So
yeah, and
when you say that and you open up that wide spectrum of thinking and are able to really sink your teeth into all of these different issues and see how interconnected everything is, it becomes blatantly obvious. And when you hear things, you grow such a keen ear for when buzzwords are used, or why this is happening, or why this is said amongst the people that we're supposed to love, know, and trust, as our politicians, investment bankers, global elite, et cetera, celebrities, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I can say something so much more articulate than half the people that are, popular in, pop culture nowadays. I know I'm a jumbling mess, and that's just how I do sometimes. But, I know better. And all you need is Justin Bieber to come out and say, save the fucking whales. And that cocksucker's got fucking $125,000 the next day in a bank account somewhere. We're trying to do a Pork Fest documentary, and we've got $40 in the past week and a day or two, and just it sucks to see that. And I think more and more people are waking up, and that's encouraging. However, it's bad news any way we slice it. But
yeah, I mean, I think you're really describing a chain of cognitive dissonance when your reality or your perception of reality does not match with what is actually going on. And the Bush family is a perfect example. When I was young and I inherited my first set of political beliefs, which leaned heavily to the right, I was told at a very young age that Bush is running against Gore, and Bush is the good guy. He's got the little red R next to his name, and Al Gore is the bad guy, and he's got the little blue D, and that's your first set of political beliefs. And that Bush equals good guy does not match at all with Bush equals war financier and partner with Saudi oil companies and Skull and Bones member and Prescott Bush being a Nazi and an ardent supporter of the Nazis, and Prescott Bush and George H.W. Bush being active elements in the Kennedy assassination. Like, you don't learn about any of this stuff. This is the true substantive history that could paint a picture of what the Bush cartel really is, but because so many people at a very young, impressionable age are just told, here's what you believe, don't question it, they don't question it.
And let me tell you something. We had a mock election in my elementary school, and we do have to wrap it up, sadly enough. But yeah, and
there's always Journalistic Revolution afterwards.
Yeah, hey, listen, look, kid, I got this. All right,
dance with me, right?
No, I'm dancing with you. I'm just telling you, I'm always lining it up, right?
Well, you're square dancing, and I'm waltzing.
You're more than welcome to join us on Journalistic Revolution coming up next here at libertymovementradio.com. Thanks, Josh. But we had a mock election at my elementary school. Okay, I was like 7 years old, right? And this was.
Did you vote for Ross Perot?
Yes, I did. And I was 7 years old. But, however, I don't know if this was, I don't know. I was like back and forth between MTV and like the political shit that was going on when I was a kid. That's like what I watched. And I listened to that, and it wasn't that the guy was a cartoon character. It was like there was a lot of sense being made and all that, because even at 7 years old, I remember hearing what both sides had to say and how they treated the people that were interviewing them, and the place of superiority. And like how Ross Perot just seemed very like, taken back and just totally separate from a lot of that. But it was like 4% of my middle school or my elementary school, I should say, that voted for Ross Perot. And I was a part of that. And it was like, I don't know. There was just something to that. But fuck, man. All right. Sorry, dude. We got to jam. We ran way long. I'm not even going to get to play a song.
Sorry. Thanks so much for having me, Tripp.
Hey, man, any old time, of course. And as always, you're more than welcome to join us next hour. And we're going to leave our audience at RazRadioLive.com. And we got Journalistic Revolution. We're at JRev Studios tonight. Me and Robert in-house. Matt will be joining us, and maybe Josh later if he wants to. But
I think I'll stick around.
All right, rock on. That's what we're doing. All right. We'll catch you next time, everybody. It is Post Politics, libertymovementradio.com, Raz Radio Live.